Hello friends, welcome back to OK Java. Guys, in this video we'll talk about production ready REST API. Alright guys, so I will explain the get, post, put, patch and delete operations including exception handling. Alright guys, so that being said, let's begin the video. Alright guys, here are the endpoints that I will be using during the demo to perform different operations. For example, to perform get operation, I will be using these two endpoints. To perform post, here is the endpoint. To perform put operation, here is the endpoint. Similarly for patch and delete. Alright, now guys, it's time to understand the project structure. Okay, so guys, let me open the IDE. So guys, our application name is student REST API. I have main class where we have Spring Boot application annotation. Then I have got one controller class which has got all our methods to perform different operations like post, get, put, delete, patch and all. Okay. Then guys, one Pozo class. So this is my entity class having multiple attributes like ID, which is my primary key, then first name, last name and email. And here is my table name, student underscore API data. Then guys, I have got one repository interface which extends the CURD repository interface. Okay, then guys, one service class which will have all our business logic. Okay, so I will explain each function during the demo itself. And then guys, to handle the exception, I have used three classes. So the very first one is student exception class, which extends the runtime exception. Okay, here I have used two attributes, error message and HTTP status code and constructor. Okay, simple Java class which extends the runtime exception. Then I have got student error handler class. So guys, whenever if any of the function throws student exception, this error handler class will be invoked and will handle that particular exception. Guys, to make it work, I have used @REST controller advice. Alright guys, and if you look at it here, in the response type, I am returning a value of type error type. So error type is another class which takes three arguments. One is current timestamp, status, HTTP status code and error message. Okay, so this is my custom class. And finally our application.properties file. Guys, for this demo, I'm using H2 database. As you guys know that we can use either in-memory or a file-based H2 database. But for our demo, I'm using file-based because I want to keep the data after the demo as well. So to have the database connection, we have to provide the database URL, driver class name, username and password. I'm using default username and default password which is blank. Then guys, this particular property is to enable the H2 console. Spring.h2.console.enable equals to true. Guys, by default, the console endpoint will have something like this /h2-console, but we can rename it. So I have done that too by using console.path property. Okay, this is my new console endpoint to access the database. Guys, we need H2 console enabled. Why? Because we want to run SQL to create the tables. Okay, we want to have the table beforehand. And if I go down, I have used couple of JPA properties like this particular property. Spring.jpa.showSQL is to display the SQL. Okay, then DDL auto equals to update and as to dialect. Three properties from JPA. Alright guys, and guys, as I mentioned earlier, that I will be using Postman to test our REST API functions. I hope I'm clear guys. Okay, so guys, we'll start our demo with the post call. Why do we need post? So that we can add some records into database. Guys, let me show you the H2 console first. Okay, let's go to the browser. This is down. Why? Because our application is down. So let's go and start our application first. Alright guys, our application has started on port number 8080. Let's go and refresh the console URL. Now guys, to access the H2 console, you have to make sure that you are using the right value in the driver class and the right database URL, username and password. So guys, the question is, where can you find these values? If you go to your application.properties file, you will have the database URL. So you have to make use of the URL as it is and paste here in the database URL. Okay, driver class name is org.h2.database. That is what we have used. This is the database username and password is blank. Okay, so guys, basically the point is you have to make sure that you are using the right set of values here to connect to the H2 database. Okay, test connection is fine. If I click on connect, it will connect to the database. Now guys, here I already have a table called student underscore API data and if I run the select SQL, there are no records. Our table has got 4 columns: ID, email, first name and last name. Alright guys, now let me open Postman. So guys, I will be using Postman to perform all the REST API operations. So we'll start by looking at the post call. Okay, http://8080/API/students. Alright guys, now before we go and test our post method, I want to explain the code. Okay, so let's go to IDE. Let's go to the controller class and have a look at the post method. So guys, first of all, you have to check this one, that I've used @REST controller annotation and request mapping annotation with the value /API. Okay guys, I have injected the service layer by using @AutoWide annotation. And guys, here is our function which will handle the HTTP post call. So the method name is save. Input argument is student object with @request body annotation. Guys, @request body annotation will bind the HTTP request body to our domain object, which is student. Okay, and if you look at the response, the return type of our save function is a response entity. Okay, so guys, I've used @post mapping annotation, and then path or value, you can use path equals to /students or value equals to students, right? Then our endpoint would look something like this to perform the post call. Okay, and then I've used two other attributes called consumes and produces with a JSON value. Okay guys, now guys, here is the logic. To perform the post call, basically we have to create a resource, right? So I have used a function called create or update by passing our student object. Now if I go to our service layer, so guys, here I'm calling the save function from our repository by passing the student object. Okay guys, so this particular save function will add a new resource into the H2 database. Alright guys, now let's talk about the repository. As student repository is an interface which extends the CRUD repository interface to perform the CRUD operations. Alright guys, now guys, so I hope you are clear with this particular function. Then here next what I'm doing is, if this particular object is not null, then return the object with the status code 201. So status code 201 stands for resource created. Okay, in case of any issues, I'm returning a response entity with the message could not create a new resource and having HTTP status code 400, which stands for bad request. Alright guys, and then this is to handle the generic exception. So guys, let's go and first check this particular part. Let's go and create a new resource. Okay, so I'm going to make use of the Postman to perform the post call. Now guys, we know that to perform the post call, we have to pass the HTTP response body. How can we do that? So guys, for that we have to go to body. You have to go to raw and go and select JSON from here. Okay, so basically I will be passing the student object in the JSON format. Okay, so guys, first of all we have to pass the attributes. So first attribute is ID colon value in the format of ID colon value. Second column is fname, which is for first name. So the format is going to be ID colon value. Okay, so first name is going to be okay. Then next column is lname, last name. Okay, and the value is going to be say Java. And then we have another column called email. Okay guys, so email, I'll say chat.okjava@gmail.com. Alright guys, so this is our student object. Okay guys, I'm going to perform a post call, which you can see here, and here is our endpoint. Now let's see what exactly happens when I click on this particular send button. So guys, what do you see? In the response we have got the entire student object with the status code 201. Guys, let's go and verify a couple of things. So guys, what do you see here? This is the response that we have got. Okay, this response, right? What you see is result of this particular line. Now guys, one more thing. If you look at the input type, we have used @request body to bind the HTTP request body with our domain object. Okay, so guys, for that, if I go here, if you remember here, from this particular thing we have selected body and then raw value, and here we have passed the JSON value, right? So to bind the data of this particular request body, HTTP request body, with our domain object, which is a student, right? So to bind this particular HTTP request body data with our object, we have used @request body annotation. So this particular annotation will perform the binding. Alright guys. And then next, what do you see here? Here we have used consumes JSON value and produces JSON value, right? So if you go and here you can see that, so in input, I am passing JSON value. In the output, I am getting JSON value. Alright guys, I hope I'm clear. Alright guys, I hope at least this particular part is clear. Now guys, next, in case this S is null, I am expecting an exception saying could not create a new resource with the status code bad request 400. Now guys, to test this particular scenario, setting up this S equals to null so that I can skip the if part and I can go to else block, which will come up with this particular message and with error code 400. Okay. So guys, let me just restart our application. Now guys, we are going to test our else part. Okay. Alright guys, now what I will do, I'll simply go and hit this send one more time. Click on send button. What do you see? Could not create new resource, and here is status code 400 bad request. Why? Because this is what we did right here in the else part. What do we have? Response entity with the message could not create new resource and status code 400, right? That is what you see here. Here is the message and here is the bad request. Okay guys, I hope you are clear with this too. Let me just go and comment out this part. So this particular was just to test the else part. Alright guys, I hope you are clear with the post mapping. Now guys, let's go to the browser H2 console and let's see the output. So guys, here we have got one record in our H2 database. Okay, ID 1, here is the email ID chat.okjava@gmail.com. First name okay, last name Java. Alright guys, so basically we have performed our post operation successfully. Alright guys, now let me just go and restart our application because we have commented this particular part, right? So we have to restart our application. Guys, let's go and add few more resources. ID2 Kabir, and here I would say kabir@java.com. Okay, let's go and click on send. So we have got another resource. Let's go and add one more resource 3 Rashmika. So we have got another resource. Let's go and verify. Let's go to H2 database and click on select start. So guys, we have got 3 resources. So we are good for now. Alright guys, I hope post call is clear. Alright guys, so guys, we just covered the HTTP post call. Now we'll talk about the GET call. Why? Because we have got few records to perform the GET operation. Okay, so guys, first of all, let me take you to the IDE. I will explain the code and then we'll see the demo. Okay, alright guys, here is our function which will handle the GET call. Okay, so we use GET to pull the resources from the database. So guys, here is my endpoint with @get mapping annotation. So guys, if you look at this particular endpoint, I am not passing any IDE. So if I'm not passing any ID, it means we are going to pull all the resources. We are going to get all the resources from the database. Alright guys, our function name is find all. And if you look at the input arguments, there is nothing. And if you look at the response, the return type, we are going to return response entity object. Alright guys, to pull all the resources, I'm calling find all function from our service class. Let's go and check the find all. So what's happening here is, this is my list of type student object, like array list object. And here I have used find all function from the repository. Okay, so this particular find all function will get all the records from the database, right? And if you look at the return type, right, the return type of find all function is iterable student. Okay, so guys, iterable student I cannot simply hold in our regular array list, so I have to iterate through each element, each object, and I have to put in our list, right? So for that, what I have done, I have used for each method on iterable list object, and then I have used method reference. Guys, method reference double colon operator is method reference to add, like to iterate through this particular iterable list and add all the objects in our array list. Alright guys, very simple. We are calling find all function to fetch all the objects, like all the students from the database. Okay, now guys, here if list is not null and size is greater than 0, return the list with the status code found 302. Okay guys, and in case if the list is null and there are no records, I am returning a message saying no record found with status code 404. Alright guys, now guys, first we'll go and we'll discuss this particular like success part, like if part, we want to get all the records from the database, and then we'll talk about else as well. Okay, so first let's go and get all the records from the database. So I'll go to postman, going to make get call, right? So I'll pass the endpoint http://localhost:8080/API/students. And guys, if you see, I'm not passing any parameter, no ID at all, right? So it means we are going to pull all the resources from the database. Let me just go and click on sign. So guys, what do you see? Here we have got a list of objects, list of student object from the database. Okay guys, if you go back to your code, what are we returning? List of student object, okay, with the status code. That is what we see here. I hope this part is clear, easy, right guys? Now next thing, else. If this list is null, then I'm expecting this message, no record found with status code 404. Okay, so how can we test this particular scenario? So guys, for that, what I will do, I'll go to the database and I will delete all the records from here. Delete from table. Now there is no record. Okay, 0 records. Now guys, if I go and hit the get endpoint again, what do I see? No record found with the status code 404. Okay, so this was our else part. Alright guys, now guys, in case if I have to test this exception where I'm throwing a new student exception, okay, with the message, oops, something went wrong, and HTTP code is 500, internal server error. Let's see how can we test. Now guys, to test this particular scenario, what I will do, okay, I'm going to use one string as, I will initialize this particular string with null and I'm trying to get the length. So obviously I'll get null pointer exception, right? So if I'll get null pointer exception, my catch block will be enabled and it will throw this particular exception. Alright guys, so let's go to the postman and get, sorry, we have to restart because we have uncommented this part, right? So we have to restart our application. Okay guys, so basically we are trying to test the catch block so that we can see the behavior, how our application would behave in case of error. Okay, I'm going to make the get call. What do you see now? We have got the exception block invoked. How can you say? Because if you see here, we are getting the custom exception. So here I can see the current timestamp, status code is 500, internal server error, and here is our message which we supplied. Oops, something went wrong. Alright guys, here also you can see status code error 500. I hope this is clear. Now guys, control save, stop. Guys, I'll go and quickly add couple of resources by calling the post method. Okay, so I'm going to pause this video for a second. Alright guys, I have restarted the application and I'm going to add couple of new resources. So I'm making post call. Second, let's go and add kabir.com send. Let's go and add one more resource. Let's call it Priyanka Chopra. Let's see PC @okjava.com. Alright guys, we have got couple of resources. Let's go and hit the get endpoint. So here we have got the list of students. Okay, we have got 3 resources. Perfect. So guys, I believe we are good with the get method as well. Okay, so far we have discussed post call. We have discussed get all as well. Okay, now guys, next is we'll perform the get operation to fetch specific resource. So we have to pass the ID. For example, get me the student where ID equals to 1, or get me the student where ID equals to 2, or get me the student where ID equals to 3. Okay guys, so for that, here is our function. Now here guys, what I'm doing here is we are using same @get mapping annotation, but if you look at the value, right, here I'm using /student/ and then I'm using a path variable. Right, so I'm expecting a path variable. So if you look at the above function, find all, we did not specify any path variable because that was not our requirement. But here we have to pass the ID. So we are going to make use of path variable annotation to get the ID from the endpoint. So our endpoint would look something like this: /API/students/1. So it means we have to go and get the resource where ID equals to 1. Alright guys, so our function is get student. I have used @path variable annotation to fetch the ID from the endpoint. Okay, and then we have called the find by ID function from our service layer. So let's go and look at the implementation of find by ID. Guys, what I'm doing here is we are calling find by ID function from the student repository. Okay, now guys, if you look at the return type, find by ID function returns optional object, optional student. Okay, Now guys, so I have to use st.isPresent. There is a function to make sure that there is a value. If there is a value, I have used st.get. So this is a function to get the object from the optional object. Okay, if you see the output, the type here, it is optional student, right? But we need to get the student, so I have to use st.get function. Okay, now in case if this is false, if this student is not present, it means this option has got null value. I'm throwing an exception, throw new student exception, no record found, and HTTP status code 404. Simple, right? Now if I go back, alright guys, then here I'm returning a response entity object with student st and status code 302. In case if there is no student, we know what's going to happen because we are throwing this particular exception, right? So we'll see an exception. So I'll explain both of these parts. But first of all, let's go and see the scenario where we have the record in the database. Okay, we'll pass an ID for which we have the data. Alright guys, let's go to the Postman. Let's go and create new request. Guys, I'm going to make a get call only. HTTP/students. As I mentioned that here I will be passing the ID, right? So I'm passing ID 1 to perform the get operation. Okay, let's go and click on send button. Guys, what do you see? We have got the student object where ID equals to 1. We've got first name, last name, email and everything. Okay, if I go and put 2 here and then click on send, I'll see the data where ID equals to 2. Okay guys, so guys, basically this particular @path variable understand is basically used to read the values from the URL itself. Now guys, let's see the behavior when we do not have the ID. So guys, if you see, we have got ID1, ID2 and ID3, right? But here I am passing ID5. I want to fetch the details where student ID equals to 5. Let's see the behavior. Guys, what do you see? We have got an exception, our custom exception with the time, status and message, no record found. Here also you can see 404, right guys? So this was our this particular part when there is no value because ID5 does not exist, right? So this optional object was null, and then it throw the custom exception, student exception with this particular message, no record found. That I can see here, no record found. Alright guys, so I believe this part is good. Catch, if you want to test this particular catch exception, what you can do is you can simply have the similar kind of thing, use one string as equals to null and try to get the length. Your catch block will be invoked and then you will see this particular message. Alright guys, I hope I'm clear. So if you go here, the important thing is, first of all, you have to check the return type. Find by ID returning optional student, right? So we have to put a condition. If this particular thing is present, then get me the student object, else throw this particular exception, student exception, right? So if I go here, we have put a catch block to handle the student exception. Alright guys, now to handle this particular exception, we have a class called student error handler. This particular class gets invoked and then it returns the data in the error type object where we have the current timestamp, then the error message, status code and error message. So if you see here, right, you will see the object here like current timestamp, status and message. Alright guys, alright, let's move. So far we have covered post call. We have seen get to get all the resources and to get any specific resource by passing the ID. Now the next one is put mapping. Guys, the primary purpose of put function is to update an existing resource. Okay, but put can also be used to create a new resource if the resource does not exist. Now guys, it purely depends on your requirement and on your implementation. If you want to make use of put just to perform the update operation, you can do that. But if you want your put operation to create a new resource as well, if the resource does not exist, you can do that too. Okay, so guys, I will explain both of the scenarios in this demo. All right, so let's go to the STS. All right guys, so here is our function put mapping to update an existing resource. Okay, so guys, first of all, the notation which I have used is @put mapping. The function name is update. If you see the value or the path /students/id. Why? Because I want to update a specific resource. Say for example, I want to update an object where student ID equals to 1 or say 2 or 10 or say 100, right? So I want to specify the value, the where clause that I want to update the resource where ID equals to 10, like that. Okay, so I have used here in the bracket ID as well. So this is the path variable. So I will be using @path variable annotation to read the ID value from the endpoint. Okay. Now guys, again here, because we have to update, right? So I have used @request body annotation to bind the HTTP request body with our student object. So guys, second thing, we have to pass the entire object in the put function, similar to the post call. If you guys remember, in post also we have used @request body annotation with the student object. Okay, so here also, first thing, for put function, we have to specify the ID for which you want to update the resource. Second condition is that we have to pass the entire object. What does it mean? It means if our object has got 10 attributes, we have to pass all 10 attributes. Remember this particular thing, okay? So to perform the put mapping, we have to pass the ID for which we want to perform the update operation, and we have to supply the entire object. We cannot pass the partial object. For example, say I just want to update the first name and last name, right? So I cannot just pass only 2 attributes. If my student object has got 10 attributes, I have to pass all 10 attributes. I will explain in a moment, okay? Now guys, here what I've done in the implementation class, first of all I'm checking whether we do have this particular ID in our database or not. So I'm calling find by ID function. If you go here in the implementation class, this is our implementation. So I'm using find by ID just to check whether we have the ID or not. If it is there, give me the object. If it is not there, if the ID does not exist, throw student exception. Okay, with error code 404. It means that we are trying to update a resource which does not even exist. Okay, now guys, if it is true, if the ID exists, what I'm doing here is I'm checking that I want to have all the attributes, because this is another requirement of the put mapping. Put mapping wants to have it just to make sure that we have got all the attributes supplied. Okay, so if I go here, I have put a check here. If everything, if get name, last name and email is not null and there is some value, return true. Else, if any of the attribute is missing, throw student exception with the message missing content and response code as 400 bad request. Why? We cannot perform the put operation because we have missed some of the attribute. Alright guys, so we have to verify this particular implementation very careful, right? So this is the additional method which I have used to make sure that we have received all the attributes in our HTTP request. Alright guys, once I have all the attributes, I am setting up my new temporary student object which I have created here, right? As equals to new student. I am setting up all the values and passing my this temporary object into create or update function. So if you see here, I am calling this save function from our repository which will update our existing resource. Okay guys, now let's see the behavior. First of all, we'll go and see what happens when we don't have the resources into the database. Okay, so guys, I want to perform the put operation. My endpoint would look like something like this. Guys, here if you see, I have to pass the ID for which I want to perform the update operation. So I'll just pass slash say object 5. 5 does not exist. We know that, right? So let's see the behavior in this case. Second requirement, I have to pass the entire request body having all the attributes of the student object. Okay, so I'll go to the postman. Let's go to body row. Let's go and select JSON. So what I will do, I'll just copy this just to save the time. Let's go here. Let's go and put here. Right. So if you see, okay, so guys, here I have passed first name, last name and email, and I'm trying to update the resource which does not even exist. What do you see? No record found. It means that this ID itself does not even exist into the database, right? So what I will do, let's go and perform for student 1. Okay, this is my complete object. All right, let's see. So I have to change something. For example, okay, first name underscore okay underscore Java, and in last name I will also add Java underscore okay. I made some change. We have got the updated object with the updated values and status code as 200. So if I go here we are returning response entity object with the student with the new as and HTTP status code as 200, which we can see here 200. Okay, now guys, next check this one, all attributes. In case, let's see the behavior in case if we did not pass the all the attributes. Let's see the behavior. For example guys, here if I remove the last name, say I just want to update the first name and email only. Let's see the behavior now. Guys, what do you see? We have got custom error with the current timestamp, status code as 400 bad request and message missing content, which we have mentioned here. If I go to this particular function, Here I have thrown student exception with missing content message and bad request as the status code 400. Okay. So guys, we have to make sure that our code perfectly handles these situations. First requirement of the put function is that we have to pass the ID. Second, we have to supply the entire object. In case if there's any attribute missing, we have to throw the exception like this kind of message. Okay. Now guys, let's go and do this put to update a second resource quickly. So where ID equals to 2 and currently resource 2 has got Kabir Junior. Okay. So if I go here, first name I don't want to make any change. I just want to keep it Kabir only. And say for example last name, I just want to change it to last name BAIRWA comma email. Okay, so I just want to update the last name, but I still have to pass the entire object. Okay, so what do you see here? We have got the latest values. First name Kabir, last name updated 1, and email was as it is, status code 200. Same I can verify by calling this get all. So here we have got Kabir, last name is Berwa. I hope guys this is clear. So the important thing is put function is you use put mapping to update an existing resource. Now guys, if you see here, I am performing the entire operation in the else block if the ID exists. So my condition is if the resource exists in our database, if the resource exists, then only perform the update operation. What if the resource does not exist? In case the resource does not exist, you can use else block to create a new resource, to add a resource into the database. So guys, it entirely depends on your implementation, because if you look at it here in my implementation, I am not doing anything in the else block. If the resource does not exist, I will throw the exception that the resource does not exist into the database. Okay, but in case if the resource does not exist and you want to create a resource, then you can write else block here, and then you can write your logic to insert a new record into the database. So guys, let me summarize guys. Put function, we use put to primarily to update an existing resource. Okay, we have to pass the ID and the complete object. Okay, put can also be used to create a new resource, but it all depends on your implementation. If you have provided the implementation to add a new resource, if the resource does not exist, then only put will add a new resource in our database. If your implementation doesn't have that logic to create a new resource, then it won't happen. Okay, I hope I'm clear. Let's move. Alright guys, so far we have seen post mapping, get and put. Okay, let's move. Let's see what is next. Okay, so guys, next is patch. Now guys, if I ask you what is put for, your immediate answer is put is to update an existing resource. That's true. Guys, we have patch as well. So patch is also to update an existing resource, but there is difference between these two. Guys, say for example, if I have to update the email only by using put method, I have to pass all the attributes. Say for example, my student object has got 20 attributes, and I just have to update couple of attributes only. Say for example, I just want to update the student email address, and my student object has got 20 attributes. Now according to put function, we have to pass all the attributes just to update the email address. Let me give you a demo guys. Let's go back to the REST API. Let's go back to the Postman. Okay guys, say for example, let me just go and hit the get. I'll copy the second attribute, second object. Let's go to put. Okay guys, say for example, I just want to update email address or say last name of any object. Now just to update the last name, I have to pass the entire object because this is the requirement of the put function. I cannot simply pass last name just because, say for example, I will remove everything and I'll just pass last name. Why? Because my request want to update the last name. Then why should I supply the entire object? Let's say the behavior of put. What it says? Missing content, error 400, right? So basically we cannot pass parcel object while using put function. Okay, while making a put call, we cannot pass the parcel object. we have to supply all the attributes. Now guys, for our demo we have used only 3 attributes, but there could be 10, 20 attributes, right? So in case of put, we have to supply all the attributes, which is too much work. Why? Because I just want to update, say I just want to update email, then let me just pass the ID, let me just pass the email, and then that's it. Why should I pass the other 20 attributes? For no reason, right? So guys, to fix this particular issue, we have something called patch. What patch function says is, to perform the patch, you just have to pass the ID for which you want to perform the operation. Say for example, I want to pass ID equals to 1, and I just want to update the email address. For example, if ID is 1, let me just go and see. Current email address is chat.okjava@gmail.com. Okay. So for this ID equals to 1, I want to my address just to abc@gmail.com, right? This is my patch operation. What it says, you just pass the where clause, like for which you want to update, and the column only, like just one attribute for which you want to update. I just want to update email to this particular value. That's it. This is what patch says. Let me just run this one. What do you see? Student email updated where ID equals to 1. How can I verify? Let's go to the GET. Send request. What do you see? We have got the new value, abc@gmail.com, right? I hope you guys are getting the difference. To perform post, we know that post is also used to update a resource, but to perform the post operation, we have to supply the entire object having all the attributes, no matter how many, 10, 20, 100. But in case of patch operation, we just have to pass the ID for which we want to perform the operation. So if you see here, I am passing ID equals to 1 and the email that I want to update. So email equals to abc@gmail.com. That's my requirement. Okay. Say for example, ID equals to 2 and I want to change the address to say youtube@gmail.com for ID equals to 2. Click on send. What do you see? Student email updated where ID equals to 2. How can I verify? So currently if you see, the address is chat.okjava@gmail.com for resource 2. If I go and refresh, here I have got the new value, youtube@gmail.com. Simple. I hope you guys are getting it. Okay, let me just go and explain the code now. So guys, here is our patch mapping. The annotation that we use to perform the patch operation is @patch mapping. Okay, and the path equals to /student. So I can use here like path equals to /students. I can use value equals to /students, or I can remove. Okay, the system is very smart. The function name is update email by ID. Now guys, as I mentioned, we have to pass just a couple of things only. What is that? First of all, the ID for which you want to update the value and the new value, say email. Okay, what I'm doing is here I have invoked service by find ID method just to make sure that this particular ID for which we want to perform the patch operation is exist in our database or not. So if I go inside, in case if the ID does not exist, I'll get an exception, no record found with status code 404. Okay. Next, if we have the ID available, then I have called update email by ID function. If I go inside, here I'm just calling update email by ID, my function, right? Now guys, this repository has got this particular function update email by ID, which is very important. So if I go inside this particular function, what I've done here is I have used @query annotation, and here is I have passed my update SQL. Update, this is my table name, as set as.email equals to email with the value which I'll pass, where as.id, again this is the parameter that we are going to supply. Okay guys, so guys, one thing which you have to make a note of it, that patch is to partially update resource. I'm just passing email ID and ID. I'm not passing the entire student object. Okay, in case of success, I'll get a message that this update is fine. In case of any error, I'll get could not update the email ID where ID equals to this one and status code 403. Okay, so I'll explain both of the things. So success we have seen. Now let's see the behavior. Let's see the second part. Else, okay. Now guys, for example, if I go here, now guys, say for example, I do not pass the email. If the email is blank, that you can see as right, ID equals to 1 and email equals to blank. Let me send. What do you see? Missing email ID from request. This is my custom exception, right? So if I go to the code, right, here in the update by email address, if the email is blank or null, throw this particular exception. Missing email ID from request having status code 400 bad request. Alright guys, this is clear. I hope you guys are fine with @patch mapping annotation or the patch operation. Alright guys, so guys, I hope you have clearly understood the patch operation and the difference between put and patch. So put is to perform update operation and you have to pass the entire object having all the attributes. In case of patch, which is also known as partial update, you just have to pass couple of attributes that we have seen in our example. Alright guys, let's move. Guys, next is delete operation. Let's see the code first. So guys, to perform delete operation, we have used @delete mapping annotation and the value is student/id. We have to specify which ID we want to delete, say ID1, ID2 and ID3, right? So I pass as a path variable. So here I have used @path variable to read the ID value from the endpoint. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm checking whether we have the ID in the database or not. If it is not there, obviously my find by ID function will throw the exception, no record found 404. In case if it is there, I'm calling delete by ID function in my service layer. If I go there, I'm calling delete by ID function of the repository of the CRUD repository interface. Okay, guys, if you see, delete by ID function does not return any value. It is a void method. Okay, so what I'm returning is here I'm saying that student is deleted with the status code okay, which is 200. Fine. In case of any exception, because if you see here find by ID function, it will throw this exception. That's why I have used a catch block to catch the student exception. Okay, and in case of any other exception, I'll get internal server error 500. Alright guys, let's go to the Postman and let me give you the example of the delete operation. So let's go here, let's go and create a new request. I want to perform the delete, so I'll just go and choose delete here. My endpoint, guys, I have to pass the ID for which I want to perform the delete operation. That I want to go and delete the record where ID equals to 1. Click on send. What do you see? Student 1 deleted, status code 200. Perfect, right? Now if I go and run the get all, what do I see? I have got 2 and 3 because I have deleted the record 1. Let's go and delete 3 as well. Student 3 deleted, status code 200. So delete is very much simple. There is nothing complex. The only thing is that to perform a delete, to delete a specific record, we have to pass the ID that we want to delete. Second thing, if you want to delete all the records, what we have to do is we don't have to pass any path variable. Just delete mapping with the path value /students. That's it. So I'm not passing any value. The function name is delete all. What I'm doing is I'm calling delete all function. So let's go and see the implementation. I have called delete all method from the repository. So if you see, to delete a single attribute, I've used delete by ID, and to delete all the attributes, I have called the delete all function. Okay. Again, guys, this is also void similar to the delete by ID method. Alright. So in case everything is fine, what I'll get? All records deleted. In case of any exception, I'll get unable to delete this particular record. Okay, guys. So this is my endpoint to perform the delete operation to delete all the records. So what I will do, I'll go to the Postman. Let me just go and run our get. So as of now, I just have got only one record, right? So what I will do, let me just go and add one more resource. So if I go and run, I have got 2 records. Okay, let's go and delete these 2. So again, guys, to delete all the resources, my endpoint, I have to go and choose delete function first here, and then my endpoint is going to be something like this: http://localhost:/8080/API/students without any path variable. Okay, if I click on send, what do I see? All records deleted. How can I verify? I can just go and click on get. What do you see, guys? No record found. Cool. I can go to the database as well. Let me just go and refresh for a second. Connect, select. What do you see? No record found, because we have tested our delete method, delete mapping, to delete all the resources. So guys, what is the primary difference between delete by ID and delete all? In case of delete by ID, we have to pass the ID that we want to delete, and in case of all delete, we don't have to pass any argument. Just hit the endpoint with the delete function. Alright guys, here we are done with this video. Guys, in this video we have discussed get mapping or get method to get all the resources or get resource by ID. Okay, we have also seen post mapping to create a new resource into the database. Then we have seen put method, put to update an existing resource. Okay guys, remember one thing, for put operation we have to pass the ID and the complete object. Then we have seen patch operation. Patch is to perform partial update. Okay, so in case of patch, we have to pass the where clause, that for which particular ID we have to perform the operation, and the couple of attributes only, right? So in case of patch, we don't have to supply the entire object. Okay, then we have seen delete operation, delete by ID and delete all the resources. Those were the easy ones only. Alright guys, in case if you have any doubt, just let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and please do subscribe my channel. Thank you.